Well, good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. I want to thank the committee and all of you for inviting me to come over to talk with you today. I have to apologise because I'm just getting over a cold and I'm at that sort of stage where I feel fine but I sound a bit rough, and so if the voice goes, I apologise for that. This is a good stage to be in because you get lots of sympathy because you sound bad but you feel fine. So today, if the voice lasts, I want to talk about open access and about fulfilling the promise of open access. What I'm going to do is spend a few slides describing what open access is, which I'm sure for the vast majority of you will be very familiar territory. I want to talk a little bit about public policy issues surrounding scholarly communications, because I think that's a really interesting driver towards change in the environment. And then at the end, I want to be wildly speculative and talk a little bit about what the implications of open access might be for the library world. And that could be the area where you think it's either completely obvious, and I'm not saying anything particularly new or interesting, or that you disagree with me violently. And so that could be an area where there might be some debate later. So just to say again, Spark Europe, the organisation I work for, is a consortium of research libraries. We were formed in 2002 following the great success of Spark in the US, which again came out of the research library environment. We encourage partnerships between libraries, academic societies and responsible publishers. I realised the other day that by saying responsible publishers, I'm perhaps giving the impression that there are some publishers that I think are not responsible, and if not irresponsible, but we are not anti-publisher. We work very closely with some publishers. We're originally focused on science, technical, medical areas, but we've moved over to arts and humanities as well. And we have 110 members in 14 European countries, including very strong support from here in Ireland, for which I'm very grateful. So the reason that we can talk about open access is because we have the internet, and the cliché is that the internet changes everything, but it really does change everything in the field of scholarly communications. We have an ever-expanding network, and we have evolving digital technologies that allow us to take advantage of new publication tools. We have new dissemination methods, and we have better ways of handling the increasing volume of research. The research literature grows by something like 3% each year. It doubles every 14 years. And so there's this ever-growing body of literature, and the old subscription models don't really work very well for handling that continued increase. And we've got to the stage now where something like 90% of peer-reviewed scholarly journals are available online. The trouble is that we're using the new technology to disseminate the material, but we're stuck in a lot of the old business models to pay for access to the material. So the business models that we use have not caught up with the dissemination modes. And that mismatch has led to a lot of dissatisfaction with the current system at many different levels. So authors are dissatisfied because their work is not seen by all of their peers, so they're not getting the recognition that they crave and desire. This is despite the fact that often researchers have to pay for publication. They have to pay page charges. In some fields they have to pay colour figure charges, they have to pay reprint charges. And not only do they have to pay financially, but they also have to pay in terms of giving up some of the rights in their own work. So either they sign away the copyright to their research, or they sign exclusive licenses, which are effectively the same as giving away the copyright. Or even at the most liberal, they sign away some of the rights within their own work, which limit what they can do with their own research and limits what their colleagues can do with that research. The readers are dissatisfied because they can't get access to all the information they need. They're not as effective and efficient as they could be. The libraries, obviously, are dissatisfied with the current situation because even the wealthiest institutions can't satisfy the information needs of all of their researchers. The funders who pay for the research are dissatisfied because they want to see the maximum return on the investment they make on research. And they realise that as the dissemination tools and mechanisms are substandard, then they're not getting that maximum return, and we all lose out because these communication channels are not optimal. So that's where the initial drive for open access came from, to try and address some of these dissatisfactions. And open access, well, there's been lots of definitions, but perhaps the simplest one is the call for free, unrestricted access over the internet to the literature that scholars give away without expectation of payment. And that's the unique thing about this type of literature that makes open access possible. Researchers who publish in scholarly journals are not publishing for royalties, they're not expecting to make money out of their publications, they're publishing for prestige and for kudos. So the fact that there is not a expectation of revenue generation for the authors means that you can begin to think about open access to this literature. And why do we think open access is a good idea, where you can build construct a large list of benefits? Some here: wider dissemination, can accelerate research because people have access to more of the research, enrich education so students have access to a wider range of materials, share learning amongst the rich and poor nations, so democratizing information, leveling that playing field, and enhancing the return that taxpayers, we all make on the investment in research. And how to do it? Well, publication online is not free. There are costs associated with it, and no one is suggesting that putting material up on the internet is a free process. But what we're saying is that we use the funds that are currently within the system, and the world journals market is worth something round about 8 or 9 billion US dollars a year. As an interesting aside, in these times of economic difficulties, the outgoing chairman of Reed Elsevier recently suggested that they were expecting their business to continue to grow. So it's interesting that, you know, when many businesses are contracting, the large scholarly publishers, commercial publishers, think that they can still continue to make money and make increasing amounts of money. So we use the funds that are already in the system, and rather than paying for access to information, we use that money to pay for the dissemination of research. Now, I know that many of you will be very familiar with the Budapest Open Access Initiative. We're actually very lucky to have one of the people who helped to write the initiative in Fred here. This was published in February of 2002, and it outlined 2 complementary strategies towards achieving open access. And I would stress they are complementary strategies. They can both be, we can follow both routes simultaneously in achieving the goals. The first was self-archiving, so this is the idea that scholars should be allowed to and able to deposit their peer-reviewed journal articles in open electronic archives, which conform to internationally agreed standards as to how the archives are built, which then allows readers to find and retrieve information within them. And these standards are the Open Archive Initiative standards. And then there's open access journals, which are journals that don't charge subscription fees, so they don't place barriers between the research and the readers, but they look to other sources of revenue to fund the peer review process. And there are many revenue sources that people can look to do this. One of the most popular, certainly in some of the biomedical fields, is to look at publication charges.